Please be seated. I open this public meeting of the College of Deans of the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam for a PhD ceremony of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities by affirming that from our Christian origins to the present day, we practice science with a sense of wonder and inspired by fundamental values. Prior to the examination, I invite the candidate to give a brief overview of the research on which her thesis is based. The floor is yours.
Rector, on your authority, and as authorized by the College of Deans, and in accordance with the decision of the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities, I am prepared to defend my thesis entitled Public and Faithful, the Christian Imperative in the Public Sphere in the Context of Bioethical Debates, in order to obtain the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. This will be the outline of my presentation. This research investigates the influence of faith-based organizations on laws on bioethical issues, artificial contraceptives, abortion, and euthanasia and assisted suicide, and the dilemmas they face in plural, secular, and polarized societies. In doing so, it addresses the ethics of citizenship, focusing on the place of religious reasoning in political debates in a liberal democracy. My main question is, how can faith-based organizations participate in the public debates over beginning and end-of-life issues to influence legislation in liberal democracies in a manner respecting pluralism while at the same time rejecting relativism, what I termed as the concept of a Christian imperative? My methodology. My methodology is 3 qualitative international case studies. While the case studies concretize the issues, this also raised a range of new dilemmas confronting religion and liberal democracies. And the second part of the research draws on philosophical reflections on religion and political liberalism to explore what can legitimately be done by these FBOs to influence policy in a liberal democracy. So these are my case studies, and in the data collection, my interview data supplemented by documents were analyzed using thematic analysis, and I also give a sample data analysis structure of the case study on reproductive health law with some sample quotes as shown regarding the rationality of the debate. My key findings. The case studies concretize the issue of restraint on religious reasons in political debates, as shown by FBOs shifting their arguments from theological to ethical and judicial arguments, or focusing only on ethical, judicial, and practical arguments. Further, the case studies identified areas of heightened contestation, the main dilemmas and questions. To answer questions garnered from the case studies, the research looked at the liberal and reformational theories and their answers to the main question. Sorry. Did the FBOs respect the different views regarding public bioethical issues, but at the same time influence legislation based on their beliefs, which is the Christian imperative? And the general question, what sorts of public justifications in a liberal democracy must be presented to satisfy core liberal democratic commitments to the freedom and equality of citizens in influencing coercive laws? Going through the theories, I begin with Rawls, who holds a semi-inclusionist position that religiously based reasoning is allowed in political advocacy via public debate, campaigning, lobbying, and protesting. But public reasons must carry the justificatory load or justificatory secularism for coercive laws. It has become known as the consensus conception. Reasons do not have to be acceptable or shareable to all citizens, only in principle accessible to reasonable citizens. Looking at the findings from the case studies, FBOs can be said to be good Rawlsians and respected pluralism, but the question is, did they avoid relativism? The main objection to Rawls' public reason liberalism is this. Rawls' anthropology assumes reason as the primary authority and conceives the person as an unencumbered self, free of unchosen obligations or communal indebtedness. As Sandel and others note, this view, rooted in expressive individualism, privileges choice, mind, and will over the body, elevating autonomy and self-determination as defining features of identity. While this captures aspects of human freedom, critics argue it overlooks essential dimensions of embodied reality and relational dependence. Chaplin gives an alternative and calls for a religious candor with faithfulness in conscientious engagement, meaning citizens should remain true to their convictions while honoring the structural obligations of the political community. He rejects the assumption that jurisdictional secularism requires justificatory secularism, arguing that such a view wrongly marginalizes religious citizens. Justificatory secularism binds states officials, but not citizens or their representatives, because religious reasons can be public. Chaplin specifies when they are appropriate and insists that legitimate political reasoning must be oriented toward the political community's normative purpose, public justice, rather than functioning as a free-for-all. So Chaplin's model yields an ethics of citizenship understood not as a restraint, but as a positive civic duty rooted in the community's raison d'etre. Legitimate political debate is therefore shaped by the demands of public justice, not by adjudicating the truth of competing faith perspectives. The key questions become how far faith-based justifications may go and when confessional candor risks breaching jurisdictional secularism. In the representative sphere, Chaplin permits citizens and their representatives to bring their faith perspectives to bear on discerning public justice, allowing religious reasoning to shape the content of laws, what he calls faithful law. But in the declaratory sphere, when the state issues authoritative decisions, he requires confessional silence. The state must speak with one voice and justify its actions only in terms of public justice. This framework enables neoconservative FBOs to advocate for faithful laws while still respecting pluralism and avoiding relativism. So the conclusion is that the prevailing consensus model from Rawls and its constraints towards religious reasoning falls short in allowing Christians to fully participate, representing their beliefs in the political life of a generally pluralist state. The alternative from Chaplin of religious candor with faithfulness in conscientious engagement is presented as an alternative. The Christian imperative on coercive laws on bioethical issues, then, is faithfulness in conscientious engagement, confessional candor in the representative public sphere, but confessional silence in the declaratory statements of the state. However, Chaplin does not explain further how FBO should practice conscientious engagement in ways that reach both the head and the heart, including the strategic use of media and storytelling, which was a dilemma identified in the US case study. He also leaves unclear how state officials should ground public reasons in principles of public justice during key decisions to maintain impartiality. The Dutch completed life bill illustrates the problem. The Rutte II government relied solely on autonomy as a secular rationale for euthanasia and assisted suicide policy, raising questions about the neutrality and the limits of such reasoning. Faith-based organizations. So I recommend this to fill in the gaps on how to have more conscientious engagement through this strategy from the Catholic Voices model. It offers a practical method. Faith-based organizations can increase their influence by reframing debates rather than reacting within hostile or limiting media narratives. The model of the Catholic Voices strategy identifies first the negative or misleading frames, acknowledge the good intention behind opposing views, and redirect the conversation towards shared values and human dignity. This approach helps religious actors communicate clearly in a culture shaped by strong assumptions and polarized discourse. Example in reframing debates. In artificial contraceptives, the common frame is the church is indifferent to AIDS victims because it rejects condoms. Reframing it would say both sides value saving lives. The church stresses its field hospital mission and promotes life-preserving behavior change rather than defending doctrine in isolation. Example in abortion. The common frame is abortion protects a woman's right to choose. Church opposition endangers women. Reframing it would say the issue is fundamentally about human rights, beginning with the right to life. The church supports the unborn while offering compassionate alternatives for women. As example for euthanasia and assisted suicide, the common frame is the church wants the dying to suffer and imposes its views on society. Reframing it will say the shared concern is preventing unnecessary suffering. The church highlights its leadership in palliative and hospice care and raises concerns about risk to vulnerable groups. I'm about to end. So
Yes, please.
this one, thank you, Professor. So I also fill in the gap on regarding how states can be more impartial in bioethics legislation. In modern bioethics legislation often relies on the notion of autonomy, which treats individuals as isolated wills defined by choice. So Gardner State argues this expressive individualism privileges the mind over the body and ignores unchosen obligations, relationship, human independence. Gardner State shows how this has been the foundation of bioethics legislation and gives the alternative of embodiment. This embodiment as the foundation of bioethical legislation recognizes humans as vulnerable, relational, and dependent, emphasizes that all exist on a scale of disability, and calls for networks of giving, receiving, and care. So to end, the impact of my research.
May I ask you to stop here in the interest of time? Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Professor Hurd, Professor of Christian Ethics at Yale Divinity School, to start the opposition. And I'd like to welcome her very much to this important occasion for our university.
Thank you very much. Esteemed candidate, let me
Yeah.
begin by saying that I very much enjoyed reading your dissertation. I admire the way you were able to bring in the case studies, the empirical research on the ground through interviews, together with philosophical analysis. On the authority of the rector, and by virtue of my right, I would like to ask how you understand faithfulness and effectiveness in relationship to one another. Near the beginning of the project, you say that you are interested in both. And near the end, you argue, and I'm quoting here, that applying Chaplin's role differentiation, neoconservative FBOs and their representatives using both religious and ethical reasons in the beginning of the oral arguments could have given these neoconservative FBOs more influence and resulting in more amendments, bearing in mind Chaplin's idea of faithful law. In other words, you argue that faithfulness in living out the Christian imperative would have given certain FBOs more public influence. So, my question is, why expect faithfulness to lead to greater effectiveness? And are there contexts within which faithfulness and effectiveness might be in tension with one another rather than being complementary?
Dear learned opponent, thank you for reading my manuscript, first of all, and thank you for your academic generosity for doing that, and thank you for the question. So I think that it is a good question because I think it reinforces the importance of what Dr. Chaplin is saying that should be the imperative in the public sphere, which is to have this conscientious engagement with even with others who we think have different opinions or views as us. So I think it's a risk. It takes more effort to do that, but it can lead, if not to maybe uh, just knowing more about the other person's worldview, and can even lead, even if not an agreement, a better disagreement. So in that sense, I think this faithfulness in conscientious engagement can lead to effectiveness in knowing more about the other person's stance in this bioethical debates. So I think he also says, and I agree with him, that it is not just helping, trying to understand those, of course, who have the same perspectives as us, but also looking at others who have a different perspective than us, and trying to understand what their position is in this bioethical debates.
If I could follow up just a little bit there. So, can you imagine a situation where it might be detrimental to effectiveness to bring your religious reasons into the conversation? And in such a case, would it be a failure of Christian faithfulness to use other reasons and to, let's say, conceal or not be forthright about the religious reasons? And in that case, would you be arguing in favor of continued faithfulness in expressing the religious reasons, or would you say that's a situation where one could be pragmatic and conceal those or use other reasons?
Yeah, that's true, Dr. Hurt. And that was the counterintuitive findings that actually I what was surprising in my case studies. So I was expecting this faith-based organizations who were lobbying for more faithful laws to use religious reasons, but they were actually using more juridical, ethical, and practical reasons to influence these laws. So uh, I think that it is already being practiced that they use secular reasons because of Kuhar and Povich even say it's a secularization of the arguments to clericalize society. So it is happening that they are using this secular reasons to actually influence this bioethical debates, and so that was surprising for me to see that and to actually recommend that in the representative public sphere, I would agree with Dr. Chaplin that they can influence laws both with their religious and other reasons to be both public and faithful, which is actually the title of my manuscript. So I think that we are seeing this already among faith-based organizations, and I would agree with them. But I think to be fully to say that we are a truly pluralistic society would mean that there should be no a fear if what we're saying, even if it's religious reason, that it can contribute to as Dr. Chaplin pointed out, it is legitimate political reasoning that contributes to public justice, then both religion
Thank you.
and secular reasons
Thank you so much.
are
Yes,
acceptable.
I'd like to
Thank you.
short and give the floor to our second opponent, Dr. Power, senior researcher, religion and ethnic conflict at Blackfriars Hall in Oxford. Also, much welcome and thanks for your willingness to participate in this ceremony.
You're welcome. Good afternoon, Lisa. I'd like to start by congratulating you on creating such a valuable contribution to the literature. I really hope it's widely read, and I certainly will be using it in my teaching and research in the coming years. So thank you very much for your contribution to the Academy. On the authority of the rector and by virtue of my right, I would like to ask you more about the use of this Catholic Voices model. Given the growth of populism and the involvement of neoconservative or Christian nationalism within politics now, especially in Europe and in the US, how can neoconservatives continue to use the Catholic Voices model in their engagement with society? And does this mean that this type of engagement will be even more effective in influencing the public sphere?
Dear point, thank you for also your academic generosity for reading my manuscript, and thank you for the question. So let me first ask if I understood it right. You were asking more about the Catholic model.
The Catholic Voices model.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Catholic Voices model, and how
Yeah.
it would help ease the tension, especially in the United States. What's going on there now? Yes. Okay, thank you. Just to be sure I understood it correctly. So this model, I think, would be very helpful at this point in time. This, as I read, was from Pope Francis and his vision of a culture of encounter. So it is, I think, very important because of the polarization in the US right now, and but not only there, but especially there. And to break this polarization, the idea here is that to get out of the frames that have been created by media, and to look at what is the shared value or intent in this situation, even if we are from opposing sides. So I think that this would be a good model for this issues, especially bioethical issues, because it has been polarized and also sensationalized by the media. So one of the I think further points of research here from my manuscript is how using this Catholic Voices model reframe this debates, this bioethical debates, and how it actually lessens the polarization and removes the frames that the media use and reframes it to what the issue is really about. And thank you.
Esteemed candidate, may I push back a little bit on that? I like your reasoning and the idea of moving beyond media-created frameworks. But what about the danger that this creates of dilution of the message? Because if you're just trying to agree on what you can agree on and ignore the elements that you can't agree on, doesn't that kind of slow down the process and prevent the full kind of picture of Christian teaching being demonstrated to society?
May I ask you to give a short answer to that question?
Yes, that is true. I think then I think it will just lead to a better disagreement, at least.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to invite Professor van der Stoep, Professor of Christian Philosophy at the University of Wageningen and also at the Theological University of Utrecht, to continue the opposition.
Esteemed candidates, on the authority of the rector and by virtue of my right, I would like to engage in debate with you. But first of all, congratulations on this very interesting thesis. In the past, I had the privilege of supervising your master thesis. It's also focused on Rawls and Habermas. It's a great achievement that you have now completed your PhD thesis in which you have elaborated on their political ideas and also even in great detail and also reported on extensive empirical research. It's an honor to ask you a question. Jonathan Chaplin, one of your co-promoters, defends a Christian democratic pluralism as an alternative to public liberalism. He also advocates a Christian diversity state as an alternative to a liberal diversity state. You seem to agree with him. But how convincing is such a position for people who do not themselves adhere to a Christian worldview? Or is Chaplin just talking to fellow Christians here? My guess is that Habermas would comment that the Christian democratic pluralism as a starting point leads to relativism and arbitrariness. Then everyone can bring in their own religious vision on how a pluralist state should look like. I would not be surprised if Habermas would even more critical of Chaplin than of Wolterstorff in this regard. Wolterstorff just defends a consocial position. In relation to this, I would like to ask you a few questions. First, what exactly does Chaplin mean by Christian democratic pluralism? And should non-Christians also adhere to it? Second, is my assumption correct that Habermas would have a similar criticism of Chaplin's Christian democratic pluralism as he had of the position of Wolterstorff? And third, what would Chaplin's response to be to such a criticism of Habermas? And do you agree with that response? I look forward to your reply.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your academic generosity for reading the manuscript and the question. So I will start first with a question about Dr. Chaplin's Christian democratic pluralism and how can also be supported by those who are not Christians. I believe this is possible because the idea here is what he's pointing out is that the state has or practices jurisdictional secularism. So it means impartiality. So state neutrality in Christian democratic pluralism, I believe, is even more, I think, in this sense, gives, supports pluralism rather than political liberalism, which sees states' neutrality as separation. So I think that in itself, giving importance to impartiality, the state being impartial to everyone, would be that would be the reason, I think, that even if you are not a Christian, to support a Christian democratic pluralist state, one that adheres to jurisdictional secularism and impartiality in all of worldviews and faiths in society. The second question, Professor, how did I get this right? Habermas' critique on Dr. Chaplin, Christian democratic pluralism would lead to relativism, correct? So I believe that he would say, and that was actually what I also included in the conclusion, that even before we can have this, for Christians, I mean, to respect other secular views, they need to have reflexive thinking. So my answer to that would be the relativism that Habermas is afraid of is because of the constraints to reflexive thinking on both sides. So maybe not just the religious side, even the secular perspectives or the secular groups. So with reflexive thinking, the constraints to the reflexive thinking being overcome, I think that this relativism, or that's his idea, that with reflexive thinking, you realize the limitations of your position, whether you're religious or a theist or a secular person. And for my opinion, maybe that is what can remove the relativism, or is a critique on Christian democratic pluralism being a relativist for non-believers. Yeah, thank you.
Then my question would be, why do you need that phrase, Christian democratic pluralism? Why not just saying impartial liberalism, for example?
That's true. Yeah. So I think he was really inclusive Christian. It's first the inherent motivation for impartial state comes from a Christian belief, the Protestants, the dissenting Protestants. That's one. And the other thing is that I believe that there is just jurisdictional secularism, but it is also a civic duty for Christians, which is his Christian imperative, to shape the state in that Christian manner as they can within the bounds of as he said, legitimate political reasoning, always looking at the purpose of the state, which is public justice.
So maybe also being transparent about where they're coming from, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to welcome and invite Professor Wilson, Professor of Politics and Religion at the Rijksuniversiteit van Groningen, to continue the opposition. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Esteemed candidate, I would like to first of all congratulate you on producing a fine manuscript based on a complex and sophisticated interweaving of theoretical and empirical material. The breadth of sources you draw on is impressive, and synthesizing these into a coherent narrative and analysis is no small task. My felicitations on bringing your project to this satisfying point. Nonetheless, esteemed candidate, on the authority of the Rector Magnificus and by virtue of my right, there are several issues raised in your thesis which give me pause for thought and that I would like to discuss with you. Specifically, I would like to ask you to tell us why you decided to use Rawls's conception of public reason to assess all three of your cases. The Philippines, the US, and the Netherlands are substantially different historically, culturally, religiously, and politically, as the thesis itself points out. Are there not then also contextually specific understandings of what counts as quote-unquote public reason relevant to each context, rather than just rules? Why utilize one theory that developed in a very specific cultural and historical context to apply to concrete examples that take place in specific and highly diverse contexts? Is public reason the same even across culturally, historically, religiously, and politically diverse democracies? More broadly, is it possible to have a principle, even one such as Chaplin's confessional candor, that guides all Christians everywhere, regardless of their context or the often significant differences in their theologies? I look forward to your answer.
Thank you, learned opponent, for your academic generosity for reading my manuscript, and thank you for the question. Well, I think that this prevailing model of public reason liberalism, as mentioned, I would agree, is cuts across culture, and I've seen it as in the case studies, as I mentioned, the counterintuitive findings that this faith-based organizations, whether they were in the Philippines, in the US, or here in the Netherlands, have restricted their arguments, the reasons to practical, juridical, and ethical reasons because of the influence of public reason. So I believe that. And what I think about the question on how, if faithfulness and in conscientious engagement can also cut across cultures and different countries and different regions. I think that this is also is also seen now, I think, in different Christian beliefs or confessions. It's just in different expressions. Like I believe the Catholic Voices model is I included it there as an example. Actually, Dr. Chaplin did not elaborate on how this conscientious engagement can be done specifically in society. And the Catholic Voices model that I presented, I think, is one good way to fill in the gap of how faith communities, like even a Catholic community, is trying to be more conscientious, just using the term of Dr. Chaplin, in their engagement with those who are secular groups or non-believers. So I think it is also being seen not only in different countries, but even faith communities, this faithfulness in conscientious engagement.
Thank you.
Dr. Polinder, who is a postdoctoral researcher in religion and security at the University of Utrecht, will now continue the opposition. And also a word of welcome to him, Vrije University.
Esteemed candidate, on the authority of the rector and by virtue of my right, I would like to discuss two issues, but I will start with one. But let me first start with my sincere congratulations. Your dissertation combines empirical research, both interviewing and desk research, with political philosophy about a very contentious issue in various countries. That's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. And you also already published some articles, which is also very good. My first question is as follows. In your dissertation, you use the term public sphere many times. I might be wrong, but I did a word search in the dissertation digital version. It seems that a clear definition is lacking. At a certain point in your dissertation, the term public sphere is named political public sphere, again without definition. All the terms that are used are the formal political sphere in the context of Habermas and the representative political sphere as used by Chaplin. Since clear definitions are lacking, this is a little bit confusing to me, so please could you clarify this for me? I think that's important because the context in which one uses secular or religious reasons matters. Former professor of philosophy of religion, Henk Vroom from the VU, who passed away in 2014, for example, distinguished between first the private, second the public, meaning all issues that are of interest for society, third the political domain, including political parties, organizations, and the parliament, and the state. He then argues that worldview debates can and should take place in the public domain, but he argues that in a legislative debate in the parliament, the political domain, religious reasoning is not appropriate. And the state should create room for a pluralistic society, but should remain neutral towards the truth of each of the religions. What would be your response to this position of Professor Vroom?
Thank you, learned opponent, for your academic generosity for reading my manuscript, and thank you for the question. Yeah, I think that was one thing that we can see that the different liberal and reformational philosophers also have different ideas of the public sphere. But I think that what was helpful with the model of Dr. Chaplin was to point out that in the representative public sphere, which means this is for Habermas, this is the informal sphere, and for Rawls, then it would be also the background culture. But for Dr. Chaplin, in this sphere, as long as the state does not have any declaratory statements, then citizens and their representatives can use whatever reasons, faithful, religious reasons, or secular reasons. And I think it is so there is a clear distinction there. Confessional candor in the representative public sphere and confessional silence in the state declarations. And the other thing that is, I think, helpful for him also is to point out that it is helpful because if you give the citizens the right to have religious reasons, but not the representatives to be able to argue for laws based on religious reasons. So there seems to be an inconsistency there. How can they represent their constituency fully if they can are not able to use these religious reasons that their constituents can? So in that sense, I think that's how I would answer the question. There is a clear distinction in his confessional candor in the representative public sphere, which includes both citizens and their representatives. but confessional silence once the state gives its declaration. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite Professor De Ridder, Professor of Political Epistemology at this university, to continue the opposition.
Esteemed candidate, to the warm words of my colleagues, I would like to add my congratulations to you on completing this fine dissertation on a topic that, as I think of it, is both timeless and timely. So well done, congratulations. Now, on the authority of the rector and by virtue of my right, I would like to ask you a question. And my question is basically an invitation for you to reflect on to what extent recent events in geopolitics have led you to revise your views or perhaps even change your mind. And let me explain what I have in mind. I'm thinking of examples like the Russian Orthodox Church's fairly explicit support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine in the name of faith. I'm also thinking of American evangelicals who support the Trump administration, even some of its more aggressive anti-immigration policies, for example, all in the name of faith, or at least ostensibly in the name of faith. So I wonder to what extent such examples might lead you to sort of reconsider the model of faith-based engagement in public debate, or its effects, or whether it really is desirable that faith-based engagement is effective in public debates. So my question is basically an open invitation to you to reflect on these examples and what they might mean for your position.
Thank you, learned opponent, for your academic generosity for reading my manuscript, and thank you for the question. I think that is really important question, valid question. And I think that my answer would be, I think, again, going back to Dr. Chaplin's model in faithfulness in conscientious engagement, I really appreciate his critique on Walter Storff, because Walter Storff's confessional candor in the public sphere may seem to lead to that kind of actions. It's giving you the equal voice or vote, or seems to say anything and anything because you have that right, is dangerous, as can be seen, and as the examples that you have mentioned. So what Dr. Chaplin is arguing for, and that's also my position, is that with our equal vote, with our right, there is also equal responsibility for us, both for religious and secular groups, to always remember that what is legitimate political reasoning, whether it's religious or whether it's secular, helps in the purpose of the community and the state, which is public justice. So I think that would be my answer, and that would mitigate mitigate things that would the examples that you were giving about the situation right now. Thank you.
Right. So if I try to paraphrase or summarize what you said, the word conscientious is really important here. So we need conscientious faith-based engagement. Sort of a quick follow-up question to that. So what if some of these organizations or groups sincerely think that they are serving public justice in their mode of engagement? Are there sort of criteria by which we can show or demonstrate or make it plausible that they are wrong in thinking so?
Yes, I believe so. I think it's important to remember that faithfulness in conscientious engagement means that you're being faithful to your belief, but you're also respecting the political structures of society. So once you're not doing that, I believe that it's not a faithfulness anymore. So I think that is the corrective to that, or the balance to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have ample time for starting a new round in which I don't think all 6 opponents will be able to ask further questions. I'd like first to inquire with Professor Hurd whether she has a follow-up question for the moment.
Thank you. Yes, I do. Esteemed candidate, you endorsed Jonathan Chaplin's suggestion that while citizens may engage in confessional candor, state officials must observe confessional silence. And you suggest that this avoids the situation created by a Rawlsian stance, within which only religious, not secular reasons must be translated into public reasons. And my question is whether this doesn't perhaps reproduce the Rawlsian problem at a different point in the system, because public officials must give public reasons. And perhaps it would be helpful in responding to expand on the difference between confessional silence and public reason.
Yeah, thank you, dear learned opponent. Yes, so I think the answer to that, in my opinion, would be the one in the confessional. What he's means about confessional silence would be already declaratory statements of the state, and in that sense, yeah, this would only use public reasons. I think what was problematic, for example, is to determine if something is really public, or it is a secular reason that has been used by the state. So a good example would be the case study here in the Netherlands on EAS. The proposed bill actually on the completed life bill is based on the idea of autonomy, and it has been seen as a public reason. So that is one of the things that I pointed out, the danger if we do not actually look at just look at the epistemological grounding of a reason, which Rawls says. So I think what's important is to look at really what is the, as Chaplin was saying here, the context of the reasons that are given. And here we'll see that public reason always point to promoting public justice. And when something is or a reason is not whether religious or secular, is not leading to tell-us of the state, which is to promote public justice, then I think it is not really a public reason and cannot be used by the state. And in that sense, they will breach confessional silence if they do it, if they use that reason, which is not public reason. Thank you.
So you differentiate between public reason and secular reason by arguing that a secular reason does not serve public justice.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? So would there be situations in which there might simply be disagreement about whether a reason served public justice or not, and therefore a disagreement about whether a reason was secular or public?
Yes, I think what is important in what Dr. Chaplin is saying is that the state doesn't reach its impartiality. So it may go both ways. A religious reason that would be accommodated or used as a public reason in a state declaration would also be a breach of breach of their confessional silence. So I think it goes both ways. So there should be a test that this reason is truly public because it is impartial and does it break the state's neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Power, I'd like to re-invite you. Is there anything you would like to bring up to the discussion?
No, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
No. Then Professor van der Stoep.
I have one question still. According to Nick Wolterstorff, we can never reach complete consensus in public debate. Views will always clash, especially when it comes to fundamental issues such as abortion and euthanasia. At some point, we have no choice but to vote on the issue, with the majority vote prevailing. That seems to me a realistic position. My question, therefore, isn't Wolterstorff simply right? No matter how you look at it, every legal system must be enforced and will always remain somewhat arbitrary. Why do you then reject this view of Wolterstorff in favor of Chaplin? What is especially the reason that you think this position of Wolterstorff doesn't work?
Thank you, Professor. Yes, I think, yeah, that is one of the critiques, I think, on Wolterstorff position. Yes, that then all there is left after we have engaged with each other in the public sphere is to vote. Yeah, but I think what is the value added in Dr. Chaplin's model there is that it also addresses the importance of not just your exercising your right to vote, yes, but also your responsibility here in trying to understand the other person's view. Because yeah, I think one of the critiques, but not Chaplin, but also Sorensen on Wolterstorff, is that then there will always be also repeat losers in a voting system, and will they continue to support the system when they are repeat losers, or and on the other side, there's also the problem that then they will not have influence in this loss as they continue to be repeat losers, and that's something that also Wolterstorff wasn't able to answer. Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, is there a question that you'd like to bring up at this stage?
Thank you. Yes, I do have one more question. Esteemed candidate, the thesis uses the terms religion, Christianity, neoconservative FBOs almost interchangeably, and seems to treat the positions of Christians and the positions of these neoconservative FBOs as essentially the same. And I would like to know why the thesis generalizes to all Christians whose theologies can be vast and even contradictory, rather than just focusing solely on the theology of the neoconservative FBOs that are the focus of the study. I look forward to your answer.
Thank you, Professor. So this is a very distinct group of FBOs. It's the neoconservative FBOs, and I wasn't able anymore to include in the presentation because of the time limit, but they're focused mostly on bioethical issues. So the neo there is that they are trying to influence bioethical laws to be more faithful, to be more pro-life as a reaction to the SRR paradigm, the rights, reproductive rights paradigm. So in that sense, I refer to these FBOs, the neoconservative, who are focused on influencing these bioethical issues and their reactive politicization as a reaction to the SSR paradigm. Thank you.
Yes, I understand that, but you also seem to treat them as all Christians. You condense them into being all Christians when they're not representative of all Christians. So I'm just asking you to make a clearer distinction between the two, or why you don't do that in a thesis.
Oh yes, that's right. I interviewed actually faith-based, but they're different confession. So they're Catholics, they're Protestants, and I think, but there are also different convictions. But I would say that it is because of their common focus on influencing this bioethical laws that have brought them together, even if from their different communities of faith. Thank you. Now that my defense has ended, I sincerely thank the opponents for the attention they have devoted to my thesis. I now look forward to the decision of the doctorate committee, which will decide whether the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will be granted to me.
I hereby adjourn the public meeting of the College of Deans for further deliberation. Please be seated. I reopen the public meeting. By its duly accorded authority, the Doctorate Committee grants the degree of Doctor of Philosophy to Liza Lansang. Professor Buys, appointed by the College of Deans as supervisor, will perform the investiture. The certificate will be will be handed over to you in a moment. And during the pronouncement, only those behind the table stand.
To sign first?
Yeah, sign first, please.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Otherwise it will not be valid.
En je moet ook een stuk lezen op de tekening.
And I declare in public that in the privacy of the closed meeting, the candidate, by his signature, stated adherence to the conditions laid down in the provisions in Article 5 of the Doctorate Regulations of this university regarding rights and responsibilities in society and science. And I now invite colleague Professor Buys to resume the ceremony.
By the virtue of the authority vested in me by the management regulations of the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam and as supervisor appointed thereto by the College of Deans, I hereby confer on you, Liza Gabriela Francisca Lansang Espinoza, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, together with all the rights, privileges and responsibilities thereto appertaining. In witness thereof, the seal of the university and signatures of the rector and the supervisor have been affixed to the diploma you are about to receive. Most esteemed Dr. Liza Gabriela Francisco Lansang Espinoza, It's a great honor for me to be the first person on the globe to address you like this, Dr. Lansang, and to congratulate you with this very special day and with your great achievements and your newly acquired dignity. But allow me to continue with dear Liza. The Vrije Universiteit has chosen as its leading motto for the next 5 years, world citizenship. But you have already been a world citizen for quite some time. I had to do some searching and digging, but there I found it. Your, at that time still physically printed registration file for the Master Christian Studies of Science and Society that you took way back in 2011, 2012. And looking back in these files, I noticed 3 things. The first was that I could immediately see the reason why we gladly accepted you in our program at the time. Because you had already had quite a distinctive career. After your bachelor in political science in the Philippines, you had taken a master's in international relations at the UvA, our sister university here in Amsterdam. And then you took up a teaching position at the University of the Philippines, Diliman in Quezon City, first as an assistant professor and then as senior lecturer. And you took a period of studies in Japan as well. So you were already very qualified, perhaps overqualified, to take another master's, and you could have started the PhD directly. But you didn't feel really qualified for what you really wanted to do. For the second thing that was clear from your application was your desire to develop yourself as a Christian scholar. In one way or the other, you had found out about the tradition at the VU, often associated with so-called neo-Calvinism, of bringing insights from the Christian faith tradition in dialogue with contemporary academic and societal challenges. And in this dialogue, philosophy here plays a key role for the analysis of underlying assumptions and worldviews on both sides of the debate. And that was what you desired to participate in and to develop yourself and to learn how to do this. And that brought you to this university at the time and to the Christian Studies program, in which some of the people who are present here behind the table were professors, and even one is an alumnus who defended the PhD himself earlier and now can be part of the opposition here. So that's really great. The third observation that can be that I could make from your files is your great consistency in the research theme that you wanted to pursue. You had already done in the Philippines research in NGO advocacy, and you had even added to your file an impressive article on that in the Philippine Political Science Journal that you had already written way before you came here. But now you wanted to study, you said explicitly so, how Christian churches engage in the public sphere in relation to bioethical issues. So it was all there already in 2011. And now you have completed your journey and that you outlined back then. And you combined your interest in empirical research as a political scientist with your philosophical analysis. And this brought you as well to yet another country, the United States, where you have been. So that's about the whole world citizenship. You have been everywhere. Of course, it has taken a long time. And that had to do with the many other responsibilities that you shouldered in those years. But it was as well a difficult step for you to upgrade a good master thesis to a true PhD. And especially not just analyzing the work of others, but as well finding your own voice and articulating your own position. Yeah? And I think that is still something that you really would like to challenge you to develop that further. And you persevered. And I want to thank as well the other supervisors, Professor Chaplin, who was present online, Professor Gaman, who's perhaps in the audience online. She could not fully make it for the full session, but has played a very essential contribution in the later stage of the PhD writing process, and to break through a kind of deadlock and make a new start there, which was very important. In the meantime, your personal position has well changed. When I looked in your files, there still say your marital status was single, but you're married now. And what brought you to yet another country, South Korea. So it's world citizenship everywhere, together with your husband. And I would very much like to make use of this opportunity to congratulate you as well, together with your parents, your mother, your father here. Really important that you are there, and all the people, your loved ones, and those who love you. And great that you are here together today. Finally, in the recommendation letters that are in the files, then at that time, 2011, it is said that apart from your academic skills, you are a very friendly and warm person, getting along with all different kinds of people. Someone of the recommenders said that. And that is certainly true. And we have experienced that as well very much throughout the years when you were in the program and and afterwards. Speaking for myself, at home, my wife and sons love your flan dessert that you then make for us, have made quite often for us. We really enjoyed this very much. So, yes. So I'm sure that when you now will continue your career now with a different title and a different status, you will take along all these great God-given talents and bring them to new fruition. And I wholeheartedly wish you, as well on behalf of the other supervisors, God's blessings on these new steps. Congratulations.
To the congratulations of the supervisor, I gladly add the congratulations of the College of Deans.
Wait. Father.
Yeah. So this was a wonderful sustenance of what I was trying to say, to express my congratulations on behalf of the College of Deans. I would also like to thank the committee members for their participation. And I'm announcing that this doctorate examination ceremony is now completed. And so that I can properly do that, I invite you all to rise. I close this public meeting of the College of Deans by uttering the desire that our scientific research for truth and wisdom may be beneficial to the world and to humanity. Thank you.